I'm Natalie Green, 32, Senior Marketing Director at TechVision. Today I arrived alone at my cousin Jessica's wedding at the Plaza Hotel. My navy blue dress felt perfect when I tried it on, but now it feels like a spotlight on my solitude. As I entered the ballroom, conversations hushed. She couldn't even find a date, my sister Kimberly whispered to her husband. Mom gave me that familiar pitying look while Dad barely glanced up. My extended family's judgment weighed heavily as I retreated to a corner, fighting back tears. Then suddenly, the grand doors flew open, and every head turned. Before I continue this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt judged by family. Trust me, you'll want to see what happens next when this unexpected guest changes everything. Growing up in suburban Boston, I was always the responsible sister. My parents, Diana and Richard Green, made it clear early on that Kimberly was their golden child. Everything came easily to her. Dance recitals where she always got the lead, straight A's without seeming to study, and a natural social grace that drew people to her. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became the soundtrack of my childhood. When Kimberly was crowned prom queen, my parents threw her a lavish party. When I made honor roll, I got a quick good job at dinner. When Kimberly got engaged to Bradley Thompson, the son of my father's golf buddy, my mother cried happy tears for days. When I landed my dream job at TechVision, my accomplishment was mentioned as an afterthought at Sunday dinner. I worked hard through college at Boston University, graduating with honors in marketing. My career became my focus. Starting as a junior marketing associate at TechVision, I worked my way up to senior marketing director over 8 years. My campaigns increased client engagement by 30% last quarter alone. My work became my identity, my safe haven. Then there was Alex. We dated for 3 years and I thought he might be the one. Until I discovered his 6-month affair with a colleague. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he said, as if that somehow made the betrayal less painful. We just connected. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal. It was realizing how blind I'd been, constructing a future with someone who'd already checked out. The past 8 months had been about healing and focusing on work instead of dating. I threw myself into projects, stayed late at the office, and turned down setups from well-meaning friends. My recent promotion to senior marketing director coincided with cousin Jessica's engagement announcement. Jessica and I had been close as children. Summer vacations at our grandparents' lake house, building sandcastles and catching fireflies. As we grew older, our paths diverged, she pursuing fashion design while I went into marketing. We still exchanged birthday texts and occasional coffee dates, but our once close bond had frayed with time and distance. When her wedding invitation arrived with the dreaded +1 option, my stomach knotted. I considered asking a friend to pose as my date, but ultimately decided against perpetuating a lie. I shopped for my dress alone, choosing something elegant but understated. A navy blue A-line with subtle beading that complemented my auburn hair and green eyes without drawing too much attention. The pre-wedding events were a special kind of torture. At the bridal shower, Aunt Victoria presented Jessica with lingerie, then looked pointedly at me. "Perhaps we should set some aside for Natalie, for when she finally needs it." The room erupted in laughter while I forced a smile, my cheeks burning. My friend Olivia suggested hiring an escort service. "Just for appearance's sake," she said over wine at our weekly dinner. "No one would know." "I'd know," I replied. "And I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not to please my family." The morning of the wedding, I woke early, taking extra care with my appearance. I styled my hair in loose waves, applied natural makeup that highlighted my eyes, and slipped into my dress. Standing before the mirror, I practiced confident smiles and reminded myself of my worth. "You're successful, intelligent, and complete on your own," I whispered to my reflection, trying to believe it. The cab ride to the Plaza Hotel was filled with anxiety. My hands fidgeted with my clutch as Manhattan's skyline slipped past the window. As the cab pulled up to the hotel's grand entrance, I hesitated before stepping out. For a moment, I considered telling the driver to take me home, to fabricate some emergency. Instead, I paid the fare, took a deep breath, and walked toward the ornate doors alone. The Plaza Hotel ballroom took my breath away despite my anxiety. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over cream and blush floral arrangements. Round tables circled a polished dance floor, each set with fine china and elaborate centerpieces. A string quartet played softly in the corner as guests mingled. My entrance caused a ripple of hushed conversations. Uncle Gregory, already 3 drinks in judging by his flushed face, didn't bother lowering his voice. Still single at her age. Shame, isn't it? All that education and no one to share it with. Aunt Victoria swooped in immediately. Natalie, darling. Alone again? I know several eligible men I could introduce you to. There's my dental hygienist's son, divorced twice, but very stable now. Or my neighbor's nephew. He's only 22, but they say age is just a number. I mumbled noncommittal thanks, scanning the room for a friendly face or inconspicuous corner. Instead, I found Kimberly approaching, resplendent in a designer pink dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her blonde hair was styled in an elaborate updo, diamonds glittering at her ears and throat. Bradley hovered nearby, checking his phone with the bored expression of a man who'd rather be golfing. Natalie. Kimberly air-kissed both my cheeks. That dress is practical. Smart choice for reusing at work functions. She glanced around conspicuously. Couldn't find anyone willing to be her plus one? I told Mom you'd probably come alone. Before I could respond, my mother appeared, elegant in slate blue with her silver-streaked hair perfectly coiffed. Natalie, honey, you look nice. Her eyes held the same pity they'd shown when I'd failed to make cheerleading in 9th grade. It's perfectly fine to be independent. Not everyone needs a partner to be complete. Her tone suggested the exact opposite. The wedding planner, a harried woman with a clipboard and Bluetooth earpiece, approached. Ms. Green, let me show you to your table. She led me across the room to what was clearly the singles table, a hodgepodge of elderly widow Gertrude Jenkins, 16-year-old cousin Parker, who was glued to his gaming device, and recently divorced cousin Travis, who already smelled of whiskey. Congratulations on your promotion, Gertrude shouted, her hearing aid whistling. Your mother tells me you're very busy with work. Is that why you haven't found a husband yet? I reached for my water glass, nearly knocking over the champagne flute in the process. I enjoy my career, I managed, taking a long sip to avoid elaborating. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Jessica floated down the aisle in a custom gown, radiant as she joined Tyler at the altar. Their vows were personal and moving, speaking of partnership and unconditional support. I felt genuinely happy for her, even as a twinge of melancholy settled in my chest. During cocktail hour, I strategically positioned myself near the appetizer table, filling a small plate with stuffed mushrooms and spanakopita. The food gave me something to focus on besides my conspicuous lack of companion. When are you going to settle down, Natalie? My mother's cousin Linda cornered me by the shrimp display. Your biological clock isn't getting any younger. Any prospects on the horizon? Uncle Robert asked, helping himself to a bacon-wrapped scallop. You know, my golf buddy's son just got divorced. He's a bit older, but established. Owns 3 car dealerships. By the 6th unsolicited suggestion for my love life, I retreated to the ladies' room, locking myself in a stall until my breathing steadied. At the marble sink, I dabbed at incipient tears with a tissue, careful not to smudge my mascara. Get it together, I whispered to my reflection. Their opinions don't define you. I called Olivia from the relative privacy of a cushioned bench in the powder room area. They're acting like I have a terminal illness called singleness, I complained. Remember, their reactions say more about them than you, Olivia reassured me. You're catching flights while they're catching feelings about your personal choices. Stay strong. Armed with manufactured confidence, I returned to the reception. Kimberly intercepted me immediately, champagne flute in hand. You should really put yourself out there more, Nat. Have you tried those dating apps? Even people with challenging circumstances find matches these days. I forced a smile. I'm focusing on my career right now. That's what all single women say when they can't find someone, she replied with faux sympathy, patting my arm. The DJ's voice boomed over the speakers. All the single ladies, it's bouquet toss time. His eyes scanned the crowd and seemed to linger on me. Don't be shy, ladies. 3 ants physically steered me toward the gathering group of single women, mostly Jessica's younger cousins and college friends. Go on, Natalie. Maybe catching the bouquet will change your luck. Aunt Victoria pushed me forward. I stumbled into position, feeling every eye in the room on my back as Jessica prepared to toss her bouquet. A sudden hush fell over the crowd. Jessica paused mid-turn, bouquet clutched in her hands. The grand double doors at the entrance to the ballroom swung open dramatically, and the string quartet faltered in their rendition of Pachelbel's canon. A man stood in the doorway, tall and commanding in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His dark hair was styled in a way that looked effortlessly sophisticated, his jawline sharp enough to cut glass. He surveyed the room with confident ease, as if assessing a boardroom rather than interrupting a wedding reception. Is that Sebastian Reed? Someone whispered loudly to my right. The tech billionaire? What's he doing here? Another voice murmured. Jessica and Tyler exchanged confused glances from the front of the room. They clearly hadn't expected a celebrity guest of this caliber. Sebastian's eyes swept the room methodically until they locked with mine. A flicker of something, recognition, interest, crossed his face. With purposeful strides, he crossed the ballroom, the crowd parting before him like the Red Sea. My heart hammered against my ribs as he approached, his gaze never leaving mine. He stopped directly in front of me, his 6'2" frame towering over my 5'6" even in heels. Up close, his eyes were a striking blue-gray, intelligent and somehow amused. Before I could process what was happening, he took my hand in his touch warm and surprisingly gentle. Sorry I'm late, love. Traffic was a nightmare. His voice was deep with a hint of rasp, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. He leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to my cheek, his cologne a subtle blend of sandalwood and something uniquely his own. I froze, confusion and shock rendering me speechless. Kimberly's jaw literally dropped, her perfectly applied lipstick forming a comical O of surprise. From the corner of my eye, I saw my mother straighten her posture, a beaming smile replacing her previous expression of pity. Play along, Sebastian whispered in my ear, his breath warm against my skin. You looked like you needed rescuing. I'll explain later. My mind raced through possibilities. Was this a mistake? A joke? Some elaborate prank? Yet something in his steady gaze conveyed sincerity, offering a lifeline when I was drowning in familial judgment. I thought you might not make it, I heard myself saying, surprising even myself with how steady my voice sounded. His smile was dazzling, white teeth against his lightly tanned skin. And miss this? Never. He slipped an arm around my waist, the gesture both protective and possessive. Jessica approached, her bridal glow enhanced by curiosity. Natalie, it didn't mention you were bringing such a distinguished guest. Sebastian extended his hand to her. Sebastian Reed. Congratulations on your beautiful wedding. I apologize for the late arrival. Overseas business call ran long. Natalie assured me I was on the +1 list, but she wasn't certain I'd make it in time. Of course, any friend of Natalie's is welcome, Jessica gushed, signaling to the wedding planner. We'll need to adjust the seating arrangement. Within minutes, I was whisked from the singles table to the VIP section near the bridal party. Sebastian's hand remained at the small of my back as we walked, a warm pressure that felt bizarrely right for someone who was essentially a stranger. The transformation in my family's attitude was immediate and dramatic. Kimberly materialized at our table, her expression a strained attempt at nonchalance. Natalie, you didn't mention you were seeing anyone, let alone someone so accomplished. You never asked, I replied simply, feeling a surge of unfamiliar confidence. Sebastian, what exactly do you do? Kimberly batted her eyelashes while Bradley glowered beside her. My mother appeared, practically shoving Kimberly aside. Natalie has always been our intellectual one, she announced to Sebastian, as if she'd spent years proudly proclaiming this fact rather than lamenting my lack of social graces compared to Kimberly. Top of her class at Boston University, you know. As we took our seats, Sebastian leaned close. "We should establish some basics," he murmured. "How long have we been dating? 3 months? Where did we meet?" 3 months sounds believable, I whispered back. "Not too new, not serious enough that I would have mentioned you to everyone." "Perfect. We met at the Wilson Charity Gala in March. I was impressed by your marketing insights. First date was dinner at Le Bernardin." I blinked, surprised by the specificity. "How do you know I work in marketing?" A slight smile curved his lips. "Your name tag is on the gift table. Natalie Green, Senior Marketing Director." I filled in the blanks. When the champagne toast began, Sebastian clinked his glass gently against mine, his eyes holding a conspiratorial gleam that sent an unexpected flutter through my stomach. For a moment, I forgot this was all pretense, that this handsome, successful man wasn't actually my date, that we were performing an elaborate charade for an audience of wedding guests. Guilt niggled at the edges of my consciousness. Was I any better than Alex with his deceptions? But this was different, I reasoned. This wasn't hurting anyone, and it would be over in a few hours, nothing more than an amusing anecdote to share with Olivia tomorrow. Still, when Sebastian smiled at me, a genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes, something fluttered in my chest that had nothing to do with our fabricated relationship. Sebastian pulled out my chair with practiced ease when we returned from the buffet line, his manners impeccable without seeming forced. As we settled into our meal, he leaned closer, his voice low and private. "I overheard your sister when you arrived," he admitted, a flash of indignation crossing his features. The "couldn't find a date" comment. That was unkind. "That's Kimberly," I said with a practiced shrug that didn't quite disguise the old hurt. "She's been the family favorite since we shared a womb. She emerged first and has been leading ever since." "Twins." His eyebrows rose in surprise. "No, she's 2 years older, but never lets me forget those 24 months of additional wisdom." I took a sip of champagne. Enough about my family dynamics. I should know something about the man who's supposedly been dating me for 3 months, beyond the obvious tech billionaire headlines. He smiled, cutting into his prime rib. "Self-made, if that matters. Started coding at 13, sold my first security software company at 25, launched Reed Innovations 3 years ago. The media exaggerates the billions, though." "Only multiple millions, then? How disappointing," I teased, surprising myself with how comfortable I felt. "I worked my way through Stanford on scholarships and ramen noodles," he continued. "First-generation college student. Parents were teachers in Oregon." "That explains the lack of entitlement that usually comes with wealth," I observed. "I built TechVision's marketing department from the ground up. Increased client engagement by 30% last quarter." "Impressive," he said, and unlike when my family said it, he sounded sincere. "What's your specialty? Digital? Traditional?" "Integrated campaigns with an emphasis on storytelling across platforms. Our last campaign for Horizon Software went viral with 60 million views." His eyes lit up. "The one with the grandmother learning to code to create a memorial website for her late husband? That was yours?" Brilliant emotional hook with practical application demonstration. For the next 20 minutes, we discussed marketing strategy, his insights sharp and thoughtful. The conversation flowed to indie films. We both loved obscure director Emilia Santiago's work, modern art. He collected emerging artists, but admitted to not understanding experimental installations, and travel. "You studied abroad in Barcelona?" he asked, looking genuinely surprised. "Spring semester 2015? "Yes, at Universitat Pompeu Fabra." "Why?" "I did a semester at IESE Business School that same spring. We probably passed each other on Los Ramblas without knowing it." "Small world," I murmured, wondering at the coincidence. When the DJ announced the dance floor was open, Sebastian stood and extended his hand. "Shall we make this look convincing?" On the dance floor, his hand rested lightly on my waist, the other holding mine with confident pressure. He moved with natural rhythm, leading without dominating, adjusting perfectly to my steps. "You're good at this," I said as he guided me through a turn. "Mandatory ballroom lessons from age 12. Mother's orders." His smile turned rueful. She had aspirations of raising a gentleman. She succeeded, I said before I could stop myself. His eyes met mine, something warm flickering in their depths. The sensation of his hand on my waist felt increasingly right, increasingly dangerous. Unbidden, memories of Alex's betrayal surfaced. The shock of discovering text messages, the shattering of trust, the humiliation of having been so easily deceived. I couldn't afford to forget this was pretend, no matter how genuine it felt. Kimberly and Bradley approached as the song ended, Bradley's expression suggesting this was not his idea. "Sebastian, Natalie mentioned you're in tech?" Kimberly's smile was predatory. "Bradley's father is looking to diversify his investment portfolio. Perhaps you could share some insights." Sebastian smoothly fielded their questions about market trends and potential growth sectors, his knowledge both broad and specific. I watched in admiration as he handled Bradley's increasingly technical queries without hesitation. "How did you two meet again?" Kimberly asked, her tone suggesting she was looking for inconsistencies. "The Wilson Charity Gala," Sebastian replied without missing a beat. Natalie was representing TechVision. She made an insightful comment during the panel discussion that caught my attention. I approached her afterward, and we ended up talking until they shut down the venue. The fabricated story sounded so believable that for a moment, I almost believed it myself. My mother joined our circle, her eyes shining with approval as she looked at Sebastian. "Natalie mentioned you might not make it tonight." "Something about Tokyo." I froze, having said no such thing, but Sebastian didn't falter. "Singapore, actually. Merger negotiations. Wrapped up just in time to make the last flight back." He placed a hand at the small of my back. Couldn't let Natalie down. My father, who had barely acknowledged me earlier, suddenly appeared interested in my existence. "Sebastian, Richard Green." He extended his hand. "Tell me about this security software you developed." "My firm has been looking to upgrade our systems." As Sebastian engaged my father in conversation, I caught Kimberly watching us with narrowed eyes, clearly trying to reconcile the sister she'd always pitted with the woman who had attracted the attention of one of the country's most eligible bachelors. Later, at the bar, Sebastian ordered sparkling water for himself and a glass of Pinot Noir for me, correctly guessing my preference. "This is absurd," I laughed softly, accepting the wine. "My family has done a complete 180. Suddenly, I'm the interesting daughter." "You've always been the interesting daughter," he replied. "They just failed to notice." Something in his tone made me look up sharply. "That's a kind thing to say to someone you just met." His gaze was steady. "You're quick thinking, articulate, and didn't hesitate to play along with a complete stranger. That suggests intelligence and adaptability. Both interesting qualities." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. "Excuse me," he said, checking the screen. "I need to take this. Business emergency." I watched him step away, speaking intently into his phone. Kimberly materialized at my side immediately. "So, Sebastian Reed," she said, inspecting her manicure. "Bit convenient, isn't it? You show up alone, then suddenly you're with one of the most eligible bachelors in America? What are you implying, Kim?" "Just that it's surprising. You haven't mentioned him once in our family dinners. Mom had no idea you were seeing anyone. And he just happens to arrive at the most dramatic moment possible." "We've been keeping things private," I said, my defenses rising. "Unlike you, I don't need to broadcast every detail of my relationship for validation." Her eyes widened slightly at my uncharacteristic sharpness. "Wow. Touchy subject." "No, I'm just tired of you constantly undermining me. For once, I'm happy. Why can't you just be supportive?" "I am supportive," she protested. "I just find it odd that after Alex." "Don't." I cut her off. "Don't bring him into this." Sebastian returned, sliding his arm around my waist with natural ease. "Everything okay here?" "Perfect," Kimberly said with a saccharine smile. Just catching up with my little sister." When she left, Sebastian led me back to the dance floor as a slow song began. This time, he held me closer, our conversation shifting to more personal territory. "Family can be complicated," he said as we swayed to the music. "My younger brother resents my success. Thinks it was handed to me, despite watching me work 80-hour weeks for years." "That sounds familiar," I admitted. "The hardest part is that I still seek their approval, even knowing I'll never fully receive it." "The curse of the responsible child," he agreed. "Always trying to earn love that should be freely given." During dessert, we shared a chocolate mousse cake, our forks occasionally meeting. His fingers brushed mine as he passed me a napkin, lingering longer than necessary. The simple contact sent warmth spreading through my chest. I found myself increasingly confused about where the pretense ended and reality began. Was that admiration in his eyes genuine, or excellent acting? Was my own growing attraction real, or simply a response to finally being seen after years of invisibility in my family's eyes? Sebastian's phone buzzed again. He checked it, his expression growing concerned. "Maxwell, my business partner," he explained. "There's a situation with our Asia-Pacific division that needs immediate attention." "Go ahead," I said, understanding the demands of professional responsibility. His call lasted several minutes, his expression growing increasingly serious. When he returned, apology was written across his features. "I need to step out to handle this," he said, genuine regret in his voice. "I promise I'll be back as quickly as possible." A knot formed in my stomach. Was this his exit strategy? A convenient business emergency to escape the charade? "I understand," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Business comes first, Natalie." He took my hand, his touch sending an unwelcome tingle up my arm. "I will be back. This isn't—" "I'm not." He seemed uncharacteristically at a loss for words. "Please believe me." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As I watched him walk away, I realized with alarming clarity that I'd begun to develop genuine feelings for a man who was essentially a stranger playing a role in an elaborate fiction of our creation. The wedding speeches began shortly after Sebastian's departure. Jessica thanked everyone for coming, her happiness radiating as she looked at Tyler beside her. The best man delivered a heartfelt toast about friendship and love, then raised his glass. "And if any special guests would like to share a few words," he announced, scanning the room, "we'd love to hear from you." Kimberly's gaze fixed on me, her expression challenging. She made a subtle gesture toward the microphone, clearly expecting me to embarrass myself trying to explain Sebastian's absence. The microphone began making its way around the room, eventually finding its way to our table. I froze, panic rising in my throat. What could I possibly say that wouldn't expose our charade? "I'd be honored," came Sebastian's voice from behind me. He had returned so quietly I hadn't noticed. Relief flooded through me as he accepted the microphone with practiced ease. "Jessica and Tyler," he began, his voice confident but warm. "Though I'm meeting you both today, I can see the genuine connection you share. True connection is rare in this world." His eyes found mine for a brief moment. When we find someone who sees us for who we truly are, who challenges us to be better while accepting our flaws, that's worth celebrating, worth fighting for. He raised his glass. "To Jessica and Tyler, and to authentic connections wherever we find them." The simple toast received appreciative applause. As Sebastian sat beside me, our eyes met with unexpected intensity, something unspoken passing between us. After the speeches concluded, Sebastian gestured toward the terrace doors. "Could we get some air?" The terrace overlooked Central Park, the city lights twinkling against the night sky. A gentle May breeze carried the scent of the garden below. We stood side by side at the stone balustrade, momentarily alone in the midst of a crowded celebration. "I should confess something," Sebastian said after a moment of comfortable silence. "I hadn't planned to stay for the entire reception." My heart sank. "I understand. You've already gone above and beyond for a complete stranger." "That's not what I meant," he clarified quickly. "I was at the hotel for a business meeting in the Vanderbilt suite. I was heading out when I overheard your sister's comment as you arrived. It bothered me, the casual cruelty of it. I studied his profile in the soft lighting. So this was, what, a random act of kindness? Rescue the pathetic single woman. No, he said firmly. It was, he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I recognized you. From where? The Digital Marketing Innovation Conference in Chicago last October. You presented on emotional storytelling in tech campaigns. Your case study on humanizing artificial intelligence was brilliant. I stared at him in disbelief. You remember that? You wore a green blouse that matched your eyes, he said softly. You handled the Q&A session with such intelligence and grace, even when that guy from Microsoft tried to undermine your methodology. That was almost 8 months ago, I said, stunned that someone like him would remember someone like me in such detail. I meant to introduce myself afterward, but you were surrounded by people, and then my flight got moved up. His gaze was steady on mine. When I saw you tonight, it seemed like, I don't know, serendipity maybe. My mind struggled to process this new information. So, when you stepped in pretending to be my boyfriend, it wasn't entirely selfless, he admitted. I've regretted not meeting you properly in Chicago. This seemed like a second chance. Before I could respond, the terrace door opened and Kimberly appeared, her timing impeccable as always. There you are. Her voice was artificially bright. Mom's looking for you, Natalie. Something about family photos. Sebastian nodded politely. We'll be right in. Kimberly didn't move. You two seem awfully comfortable for only dating 3 months. Almost like you've known each other much longer. Or perhaps not at all. My stomach dropped. Kim, not now. I'm just saying, it's convenient how perfect this all appears. Her gaze shifted between us. Almost too perfect. Sebastian straightened. Is there something you're trying to say, Kimberly? Only that my sister has never mentioned you before tonight. Not once. And suddenly you appear like Prince Charming at the exact moment she needs to save face? Forgive me for being skeptical. Kim, I warned, feeling the situation spiraling. Sebastian's jaw tightened. I travel extensively for work. We've been keeping things private while figuring out what this is. Really? Kimberly's smile was sharp. Then why did the concierge tell Mom he escorted you directly from your business meeting to the reception? Apparently, you asked where the Green Mitchell wedding was being held. Her eyes gleamed triumphantly. You two just met tonight, didn't you? Sebastian and I exchanged glances, caught in our deception. That's what I thought, Kimberly said. Wait until everyone hears how desperate Natalie was to avoid showing up alone. It wasn't like that, Sebastian protested. I made the decision to step in, not Natalie. So, you're some kind of wedding-crashing Good Samaritan? Kimberly laughed. Please. Hurt and embarrassment flooded through me. What had started as a rescue now felt like charity. You can stop defending me, I told Sebastian, stepping back. The charade's over. Natalie, this evening became more than just pretense for me, Sebastian said, his expression earnest. Right, I said bitterly. You felt sorry for the pathetic single woman getting mocked by her family. Wonderful knight in shining armor moment for you. That's not fair, he argued, frustration evident in his voice. You know that's not what happened between us tonight. What exactly happened, Sebastian? We played pretend. You acted a part convincingly. Congratulations. We connected, he insisted. The conversations we had, the things we shared, that wasn't acting, at least not for me. How am I supposed to believe anything that happens in the context of a lie? I demanded, my voice rising. I just got out of a relationship built on deception. I'm not eager to jump into another one. His expression softened. I'm sorry about what happened with your ex. Trust is fragile. I understand that. But I'm not him, Natalie. You're right, you're not, I agreed. He at least let me know who he really was before he betrayed me. Sebastian flinched, as if I'd slapped him. Before he could respond, the terrace door opened again, and Maxwell appeared, looking harried. Seb, I'm sorry, but we have a situation that can't wait. The Singapore team is on the line, and the deal is falling apart. Sebastian looked torn, his gaze moving between Maxwell and me. Natalie, please. Can we talk after I handle this? I think we've said enough, I replied, wrapping my arms around myself. You should go. Your real life is calling. Pain flashed across his features, but Maxwell was already leading him away, talking rapidly about contract clauses and deadline extensions. I watched him disappear through the terrace doors, a bizarre mixture of relief and loss washing over me. I allowed myself 5 minutes alone on the terrace, gathering my composure before facing the reception again. When I turned to go inside, Kimberly was waiting by the doors with my mother. Natalie, what's going on? Diana demanded. Sebastian just left with another man. Is everything okay? Before Kimberly could launch into her exposé, I made a decision. Sebastian and I just met tonight, I admitted, my voice steady despite the humiliation burning in my chest. He overheard Kimberly mocking me for coming alone and stepped in to help. The business emergency is real, though. He's the CEO of Reed Innovations. Diana's face fell, disappointment replacing her earlier pride. Oh, Natalie. Why would you lie to the family? I didn't plan this, Mom. It just happened. Things don't just happen, she sighed. This is exactly the impulsive behavior that concerns your father and me. First that marketing job instead of law school, then moving to Manhattan alone. I tuned out her familiar litany of my perceived failures, watching as Kimberly whispered to a nearby cousin, no doubt spreading the news of my humiliation. Within minutes, I could feel the weight of pitying glances from around the room. I made my way to the edge of the reception, nursing a glass of wine and checking the time repeatedly. 9:45. Too early to leave without causing more talk, but every minute felt like an hour under the weight of my family's judgment, now intensified by the revelation of my deception. At 10:30, I made my decision. I approached Jessica, who was glowing with happiness on the dance floor. I'm not feeling well, I told her, forcing a smile. I think I'm going to head out. So early, she frowned. What about Sebastian? Is he coming back? Business emergency, I said, the lie coming easily now. Sends his apologies. Her expression turned knowing. The curse of dating ambitious men. Well, thanks for coming, Nat. It meant a lot to have you here. I hugged her, genuinely happy for her joy even amid my own turmoil. Congratulations, Jess. You and Tyler are perfect together. As I slipped out of the ballroom, I felt the weight of whispers and stares following me. Once again, I was Natalie Green, alone, pitted, and now with the added humiliation of having been caught in a desperate lie. The same way I'd arrived, only worse. Sunlight streamed through my apartment curtains the next morning, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air. I'd barely slept, replaying the wedding events in my mind like a particularly mortifying movie. The coffee machine gurgled as I leaned against my kitchen counter, trying to summon energy for the day ahead. My phone buzzed with a text notification. Unknown number. Natalie, it's Sebastian. Got your number from the wedding planner. I'm sorry about last night, both for leaving abruptly and for how things ended between us. The business situation was genuine, but I should have handled it differently. I'd like to explain properly if you're willing. Sebastian. I stared at the message, uncertain how to respond. Part of me wanted to delete it and pretend the entire evening had never happened. Another part wondered what explanation he could possibly offer that would make any difference. I set the phone down without replying, needing time to process. 20 minutes later, my doorbell rang. Olivia stood in the hallway holding a pink bakery box and wearing an expectant expression. I brought post-wedding debriefing pastries, she announced, brushing past me into the apartment. Chocolate croissants and those almond things you like. Now, spill everything. How bad was it? I laughed despite myself, the sound slightly hysterical even to my own ears. Oh, where to begin? My family behaved exactly as expected. I was relegated to the singles table. And then, over fresh coffee and pastries, I recounted the entire evening, Sebastian's dramatic entrance, our improvised relationship, the genuine connection I'd felt developing, Kimberly's exposure of our charade, and Sebastian's abrupt departure. "Wait," Olivia interrupted, holding up a hand. "Sebastian Reed?" "The Sebastian Reed who donated $50 million to develop affordable housing last year? That's Sebastian Reed." "Apparently. And he pretended to be your boyfriend because he saw you getting mocked by your sister? Then revealed he actually remembered you from a conference 8 months ago where he noticed the color of your blouse?" I nodded, picking at a croissant. "Nat, that's not a red flag. That's a romance novel meet-cute." "He lied," I pointed out. "To help you," she countered. And then he was honest about why. He could have easily maintained the charade and tried to get your number afterward without revealing he already knew who you were. I hadn't considered that perspective. Even if his intentions were good, it doesn't change the fact that we built a connection on a foundation of deception. After Alex, I can't. "Alex deliberately betrayed you for months," Olivia said gently. "This is completely different. Sebastian created a fiction to protect you from public humiliation, then was honest about his motives at the first opportunity." Her words resonated, making me question my reaction on the terrace. Had I been too harsh, projecting Alex's betrayal onto an entirely different situation? I need to address the family situation first, I decided. Whatever might or might not happen with Sebastian, I can't keep letting Kimberly's behavior slide. Olivia squeezed my hand. "About time." I texted Kimberly, suggesting lunch at a neutral cafe halfway between our apartments. To my surprise, she agreed readily. 2 hours later, we sat across from each other at a small table, an awkward silence stretching between us. "Last night was humiliating," I finally said, stirring my iced tea. "Not just the Sebastian situation, but the way you treated me from the moment I arrived. The comments about coming alone, my dress, my career choices, it's a pattern, Kim, and I'm done accepting it." Kimberly stared at her salad, her usual confidence notably absent. "I know," she said quietly. "You know?" I repeated, surprised by the lack of defense. She looked up, and I was shocked to see tears in her eyes.
"I'm jealous of you, Nat."
"Have been for years." "Jealous? Of me?" The concept seemed so absurd, I almost laughed. "You're the golden child. The beautiful one. The successful one with the perfect husband and perfect life." "My marriage is falling apart," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Bradley's been having an affair with his assistant for over a year. I found out 6 months ago." I sat back, stunned. "Kim, I had no idea." "No one does. We're pretending everything's fine while working with a marriage counselor." She twisted her wedding ring. "And your career? You built something from nothing. You're respected for your mind, your talent. I married the son of Dad's golf buddy and play tennis at the country club. I have no identity outside of being Bradley's wife." "But Mom and Dad always favored you," I argued, struggling to reconcile this new perspective with decades of lived experience. "They expected different things from us," she corrected. "They pushed me toward marriage and society, and you toward academics. Neither of us got to choose." We talked for nearly 2 hours, peeling back layers of misunderstanding and competition that had defined our relationship since childhood. For the first time, I saw my sister as a complex human being rather than the perfect nemesis I'd constructed in my mind. "I'm sorry about Sebastian," she said eventually. "I shouldn't have exposed you like that. It was cruel." I agreed. "But maybe necessary. We can't build relationships on lies, romantic or familial." Her smile was tentative but genuine. "Does this mean you might give him a chance? He seemed to really like you, Nat. The way he looked at you wasn't fake." "I need to finish cleaning house first," I said, though Sebastian's text message remained in the back of my mind. My next stop was my parents' home in Westchester. The familiar colonial looked exactly as it had throughout my childhood: immaculate landscaping, perfectly positioned rocking chairs on the porch, American flag flying by the door. Diana answered my knock, surprise registering on her face. "Natalie, we weren't expecting you. Is everything okay?" "We need to talk, Mom. All of us." The conversation was difficult, Years of unspoken resentments and expectations finally articulated. I explained how their differential treatment had affected both Kimberly and me, how their constant comparison had driven a wedge between sisters who might otherwise have supported each other. We wanted what was best for both of you, my mother defended, though her certainty wavered.
No, ikuntara gently.
You wanted what you thought was best, without ever asking what we wanted for ourselves. To my surprise, my father supported me. She has a point, Diana. We pushed Kimberly toward Bradley because we thought he represented security. Look how that's turning out. And we discouraged Natalie's marketing ambitions because we didn't understand them, but she's thriving. My mother's eyes filled with tears. I never meant to make you feel less valued, Natalie. I just worried about you being alone. Being alone isn't the worst thing, Mom. Being in the wrong relationship is far worse. I need you to respect my choices, even when they don't align with your vision. By the time I left, something had shifted. No magical resolution or dramatic apologies, but a step toward mutual understanding. A beginning. Driving back to Manhattan, my phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. Jessica's name appeared on the display.
Ned.
I wanted to thank you again for coming yesterday. It meant so much having you there. It was beautiful, Jess. You and Tyler are perfect together. Speaking of perfect together. Her voice took on a teasing quality. Sebastian Reed called us this morning, asking for your contact information. Tyler nearly fell out of his chair when he realized who was calling. My heart skipped. He texted me earlier. And? What did you say? Nothing yet. It's complicated, Jess. Life is complicated, she laughed. But connections like the one I saw between you two last night? Those are rare, fake relationship or not. As I pulled into my apartment building's parking garage, I spotted a familiar figure waiting by the entrance. Sebastian stood with his hands in his pockets, wearing jeans and a simple button-down rather than last night's formal suit. His hair was slightly tousled, as if he'd been running his hands through it nervously. He straightened when he saw me approach. Natalie. Thank you for not calling security when you saw me waiting here. How did you know where I live? I asked, though without the accusation that might have colored the question last night. Jessica, he admitted. I hope that's okay. I wanted to apologize in person. We stood awkwardly for a moment before I gestured toward the building. Would you like to come up? We can talk more comfortably. In my apartment, I offered him water, which he accepted gratefully. We sat on opposite ends of my couch, the space between us filled with unspoken words. I'm sorry about last night, he began, both for leaving abruptly and for how we left things. The business emergency was genuine. A deal in Singapore that represents 3 years of work was falling apart, but I should have handled it differently. I overreacted, I admitted. What happened with my ex made me hypersensitive to anything that feels like deception. Understandable. He set his glass down carefully on a coaster. The truth is, Natalie, I've thought about you periodically since that conference in Chicago. Your presentation was brilliant, but it was more than that. There was an authenticity to you that's rare. When I saw you at the wedding, looking so vulnerable yet dignified despite your family's treatment, I acted on impulse. Why didn't you just introduce yourself normally? Hey, I saw your presentation last year. I'd love to chat. He smiled ruefully. In retrospect, that would have been the sensible approach. But when I heard your sister's comment and saw your face, I just reacted. I wanted to turn the tables for you. It was quite the dramatic entrance, I acknowledged, a small smile tugging at my lips. I meant what I said on the terrace. The connection we formed last night, the conversations, the dances, the shared observations, that wasn't pretend for me. His gaze held mine, sincere and unwavering. I'd like to start over. Properly this time. No audience, no pretense. I studied him. This man who had turned my humiliation into one of the most memorable evenings of my life. Who had seen me at a professional conference and remembered the color of my blouse 8 months later. Who was now sitting on my IKEA couch looking at me like I was something precious rather than something broken. I'm scared, I admitted. After Alex, I built walls. It's safer that way. Safer, maybe. but also lonelier. His voice was gentle. I'm not asking for anything more than a chance, Natalie. One real date. If there's nothing there without the drama of last night, we'll know. The practical part of me listed all the reasons to decline. The unconventional beginning, my recent heartbreak, the complications of his high-profile life. But another part, a part that had been silenced for too long, whispered of possibilities. One dinner, I agreed finally. A real first date. No pretending we already know each other. His smile was worth the risk. I'd like that very much. He reached for my hand, his touch warm and steady. When our fingers intertwined, it felt both new and familiar, like the beginning of something genuine, something true. 6 months later, I stood on my parents' front porch, watching Sebastian park his car in the driveway. Thanksgiving at the Green family home, a tradition I'd often dreaded, felt different this year. Sebastian emerged from the car carrying a bottle of wine and the pumpkin pie we'd baked together that morning, his smile warming me despite the November chill. Ready for this? He asked, joining me on the porch. As I'll ever be, I replied, leaning into him briefly before ringing the doorbell. The past 6 months had transformed my life in ways I never anticipated that night at Jessica's wedding. Our first real date had been at a small Italian restaurant in the village, where we talked until the owner politely informed us they were closing. Unlike the performance at the wedding, this was authentic, complete with awkward pauses, genuine discoveries, and the nervous energy of true beginning. Our second date was at an indie film festival featuring Emilia Santiago's latest work. We disagreed about the third act, leading to a spirited debate over dessert that left us both invigorated rather than annoyed. By the third date, I knew something special was developing. We had our first real argument 6 weeks in, when work commitments forced him to cancel plans at the last minute. Instead of letting it fester, as I might have in the past, I expressed my disappointment directly. He listened, acknowledged my feelings, and we found a compromise that respected both our needs. That resolution taught me more about healthy relationships than years of dating ever had. Olivia approved of him immediately, not because of his wealth or status, but because of how attentively he listened when she spoke about her passion for environmental law. He sees people, she told me afterward. Really sees them. I met his business partner Maxwell properly, gaining insight into the world Sebastian navigated daily. The high-stakes decisions, the responsibility for thousands of employees' livelihoods, the pressure of constant innovation. Instead of finding his work intimidating, I found myself offering marketing perspectives that he genuinely valued. When Reed Innovations launched a new consumer privacy platform, Sebastian incorporated several of my suggestions into the campaign strategy. 2 months ago, I'd formally introduced him to my family at a casual dinner. The difference in their reception compared to Jessica's wedding was subtle but significant. This time, their interest felt genuine rather than opportunistic. Sebastian fielded their questions with the same patience and charm he'd shown at the wedding, but now there was no performance, no need to construct a fictional backstory. The door opened, revealing Kimberly. Without Bradley. After months of counseling, they had decided to separate, a decision that seemed to have lifted a weight from my sister's shoulders. She was enrolled in interior design courses at Parsons, pursuing a passion she'd abandoned after college. Happy Thanksgiving. She hugged me warmly, then turned to Sebastian with genuine warmth. Mom's been talking about your pie since you called yesterday. No pressure. Inside, the house buzzed with familiar holiday energy. My mother hugged Sebastian as if he were already family, while my father clapped him on the shoulder with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. Natalie was just telling us about your new privacy initiative, Diana said, leading us toward the living room. It sounds fascinating. It was actually Natalie's insight about user trust being our most valuable asset that shaped the entire campaign, Sebastian replied, his pride in my contribution evident. Throughout dinner, I observed the subtle shifts in family dynamics. Kimberly and I shared inside jokes rather than veiled competition. My mother asked thoughtful questions about my recent projects at TechVision. My father expressed genuine interest in both our careers, without the comparative evaluation that had once been his trademark. When Sebastian excused himself to take a brief call about a system update, my mother leaned toward me. "He's wonderful, Natalie. You seem very happy together." "We are," I confirmed, the simple truth of it still sometimes surprising me. "I'm sorry we made you feel like you needed someone to be complete," she said quietly. "You were always enough on your own." "I see that now." Later, as we drove back to the city, Sebastian reached for my hand across the console. "Your family's really coming around. They're trying." I agreed. "It's a process." "Speaking of family gatherings," he said casually, "my parents are coming to New York for Christmas. They're dying to meet you." "Meeting the parents," I teased. "That's a big step. One of many I hope we'll take together." His voice grew more serious. "I was thinking we might attend another wedding soon." My heart skipped. "Oh, Maxwell's getting married in June," he clarified with a mischievous smile, though something in his eyes suggested a deeper meaning. "Though who knows what other ceremonies might be on our horizon." I squeezed his hand, contentment washing over me. 6 months ago, I'd walked into a wedding alone, dreading the judgment and pity of my family. That evening of humiliation had become the catalyst for transformation in my relationship with my sister, my parents, and most surprisingly, with myself. Standing alone had ultimately given me the strength to find true partnership. Not because I needed completion, but because I finally understood my own worth. The unexpected meeting that night had changed everything, not because Sebastian had rescued me, but because the experience had empowered me to rescue myself. As the city skyline came into view, glittering against the night sky, I realized I was genuinely thankful for that moment when my family had laughed at me for arriving alone. Without their judgment, I might never have found the courage to demand better from them, from my relationships, and from myself. Sometimes the most painful moments lead to the most profound transformation. Sometimes you have to stand alone to discover you were complete all along. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Have you ever had a family member underestimate you, only to prove them wrong later? Or have you experienced an unexpected meeting that changed your life? Share your experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed Natalie's journey, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel for more stories like this, and share with someone who might need a reminder of their own worth. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come from the most uncomfortable moments.